Previously, on The Wrong Son, a secret buried for decades was beginning to surface. Jacob was carrying a secret that could change the lives of two families forever. Everything around Daniel began to fall apart. Amara suddenly ended their relationship, leaving Daniel heartbroken. But Nurse Stella was carrying a truth that none of them were prepared to hear. And now, the truth is finally coming out. Wealth doesn't always change a man. Sometimes, it only reveals the man he chooses to become. Daniel sat quietly inside Vanessa's car. Neither of them spoke for several minutes. Vanessa glanced at him. "I know you haven't eaten." Daniel forced a smile. "I'm not hungry." Vanessa ignored him. A few minutes later, she pulled into a small roadside buka. Daniel looked outside. "You brought me here?" Vanessa smiled. "I used to take you to expensive restaurants. Today, it's my turn to choose." Daniel laughed weakly. "A buka? The best pepper soup in Lagos." She got out of the car. Daniel couldn't help smiling as he followed. The woman at the buka welcomed them. "You're welcome," Vanessa smiled. Top plates of pounded yam and catfish pepper soup. Daniel looked around. Plastic chairs, old wooden tables, people eating without caring who was rich or poor. Vanessa noticed him smiling. "What? I never imagined you'd see me in a place like this." She laughed. And I'm enjoying it." Their food arrived. Daniel took one spoonful. His eyes widened. "This is actually delicious." Vanessa burst into laughter. "I told you." For the first time since Amara left him, Daniel laughed without forcing it. Vanessa looked at him quietly. "That's the smile I've been praying to see again." The following Sunday, Grace invited Daniel to church. After the service, she insisted he followed them home. Their small compound was already lively. Children played outside. Neighbors greeted everyone. One old woman smiled at Daniel. "So, you're Jacob's son?" Daniel hesitated, then smiled. "Yes, Mama." Grace's heart melted. She squeezed his hand. "My son." Inside the house, Grace served food while complaining. "You don't eat enough." Jacob laughed. "Leave the boy alone." Grace frowned playfully. "I finally got a son that appreciates my cooking." Daniel smiled. "I appreciate it because it's cooked with love." Everyone laughed, even Jacob. For the first time in many years, their little house echoed with genuine happiness. Later that evening, Daniel helped Jacob repair a small bicycle. Jacob looked surprised. "You know mechanics?" Daniel smiled. "No, but I'm willing to learn." Jacob laughed. "You will spoil your soft hands." Daniel picked up the spanner. "Then teach me." Jacob looked away so Daniel wouldn't see the tears forming in his eyes. If only I had taught him years ago. Meanwhile, life inside the Okafor mansion had become completely different for Tobi. Tailors visited almost every week. Business executives sought his approval. Luxury cars waited outside whenever he stepped out. One afternoon, Amara arrived at the mansion. She looked uncomfortable. The housemaid led her into the sitting room. Tobi walked downstairs wearing a designer suit. He smiled. "Amara." She stood up. "You look..." She paused. "Different." Tobi laughed. "I suppose I do." There was an awkward silence. Finally, Tobi spoke. "I heard about you and Daniel." Amara lowered her eyes. "It's over." "I'm sorry." Tobi nodded slowly. "Life changes. It changed for both of us." Before Amara could reply, Chief Raymond entered with his wife. The smile on his face disappeared immediately. "Tobi? Who is this?" Tobi answered, confidently. "This is Amara, my friend." Chief Raymond looked at her, from head to toe. He didn't recognize her as the lady Daniel brought to the mansion. "What does her family do?" Amara swallowed nervously. "My mother is a petty trader. My late father was a carpenter." Chief Raymond's face hardened. He looked at his wife and whispered, "There are many respectable families in Lagos. He should keep better company." The room fell silent. Amara heard what he had just said. Her face burned with embarrassment. She slowly picked up her handbag. "I think I should leave." Before she could move, Evelyn spoke firmly. "Raymond." Everyone turned. Amara stood up slowly. Evelyn whispered to Raymond, "Have you forgotten so soon?" Chief Raymond frowned. "What do you mean?" She looked directly into his eyes. "You wanted to force Daniel into a relationship because of family status."
When he loved another lady, you looked down on the lady because she wasn't rich. She took a deep breath. Are you about to make the same mistake with Tobi? Chief Raymond remained silent. Evelyn continued. If Tobi truly likes this young woman, let him decide. We've already lost one son. I won't watch pride destroy another.
The room became quiet. Chief Raymond looked at Amara, then at Tobi. Finally, he sighed. If she's the woman he has chosen, I won't stand in their way. Amara looked relieved. Chief Raymond walked away. Days turned into weeks. Tobi and Amara became inseparable. She attended charity dinners, business lunches, society events. Soon, the newspapers carried photographs of them together. People called them Lagos's newest power couple. But something else had changed. One afternoon, Grace arrived at the mansion carrying fresh vegetables. She smiled. I brought his favorite ugu. The housemaid collected the bag. I'll call him. Tobi walked downstairs while speaking on his phone. He barely looked at Grace. Mama, you should have called first. Grace looked surprised. I only wanted to see you. I'm busy. We have board members waiting. Grace forced a smile. I won't keep you. As she turned to leave, Jacob arrived. He had witnessed everything. He quietly followed Grace outside. My son has changed. Grace wiped away a tear. No, he has only forgotten. Jacob looked back at the mansion. For the first time, he regretted ever wishing for wealth. That night, Tobi stood before the mirror in his luxurious bedroom. He adjusted his designer suit, then smiled proudly at his reflection. He whispered, maybe I was born for this life after all. Unknown to him, across town, Stella slowly closed the old diary. She carefully placed it back inside the old metal box. For a long moment, she stared at it. 30 years of silence. 30 years of guilt. She could no longer bear it. With trembling hands, she picked up her phone. For the first time in 30 years, she dialed the Okafor mansion. The phone rang. Once, twice. Then a voice answered. Hello, Okafor residence. Stella's breathing became heavy. Her lips trembled. She wanted to speak, but no words came out. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Her fingers slowly loosened around the phone. Without saying a single word, she ended the call. She broke down in tears. I'll tell them myself. Months had passed. The newspapers were still celebrating Tobi as the new Okafor heir. His face appeared on magazine covers. Television stations invited him for interviews. Everywhere he went, people stood to greet him. Good afternoon, young chief. Tobi had grown comfortable with the attention. He no longer noticed it. He expected it. Meanwhile, Daniel's life had become peaceful. Not luxurious, but peaceful. Every evening after work, he found himself spending more time with Vanessa. Sometimes they shared roasted corn by the roadside. Sometimes they took long walks around the neighborhood. Sometimes they simply sat together in comfortable silence. One evening, they sat on a wooden bench overlooking the lagoon. The orange sun slowly disappeared beyond the water. Daniel smiled. You know, I've been thinking. Vanessa turned to him. About what? Daniel chuckled softly. I spent so many years chasing someone. I never noticed the person who kept walking beside me. Vanessa lowered her eyes. She knew exactly what he meant. Daniel took a deep breath. Vanessa, when I lost everything, you never asked me what I still owned. You only asked me one question. Have you eaten? Vanessa smiled. I was only doing what anyone should do. Daniel shook his head. No, not everyone stayed. You did. He looked into her eyes. I don't know when it happened, but somewhere between that roadside buka and all the evenings we've spent talking, I fell in love with you. Vanessa became speechless. Tears gathered in her eyes. You mean that? Daniel nodded. With all my heart. Vanessa laughed through her tears. You have no idea how many nights I prayed to hear those words. Daniel gently held her hand. Will you allow me to love you? Vanessa smiled. I've loved you for years. The two embraced quietly. Neither of them noticed the elderly fruit seller nearby. She smiled warmly. God truly has his own timing. A few days later, Vanessa invited Daniel to meet her parents. Daniel adjusted his simple native outfit. I've spoken before hundreds of directors, but I've never been this nervous. Vanessa laughed. My father isn't as frightening as you think. They entered the Adeyemi family home. Mr. Adeyemi stood immediately. Daniel greeted respectfully. Good evening, sir. Mr. Adeyemi smiled and stretched out his hand. So, this is the young man my daughter refuses to stop talking about. Everyone laughed. Mrs. Adeyemi welcomed Daniel warmly. Dinner was filled with laughter. Nobody asked about money. Nobody asked about inheritance. Instead, they asked about his dreams, his principles, his plans for the future. Daniel answered honestly. When dinner ended, Mr. Adeyemi smiled proudly. He looked at Vanessa. My daughter, you have chosen wisely. Then he turned to Daniel. My son, you may have lost great wealth, but you've kept something far more valuable, your integrity. Daniel's eyes became moist. Thank you, sir. Mr. Adeyemi smiled. Our home is your home. The following Sunday, Daniel smiled at Vanessa. I want you to meet my family. Vanessa's face brightened. I'd love to. They drove to Ajegule. Grace was sweeping the compound when she saw Daniel. Her face lit up instantly. Daniel! She hurried over and hugged him tightly. My son! Daniel smiled. Mama, I brought someone to meet you. Grace looked at Vanessa. Vanessa immediately knelt. Good afternoon, Mama. Grace smiled from ear to ear. This beautiful girl must be Vanessa. Daniel laughed. So you've heard about her? Grace smiled proudly. A mother's ears hear everything. Just then, Jacob stepped outside. Daniel smiled. Dad, this is Vanessa. Jacob welcomed her warmly. My daughter, you're welcome. Vanessa bent to greet him again. Jacob quickly lifted her. No, you're family already. Grace happily pulled Vanessa into the kitchen. Come, you'll help me cook. Vanessa laughed. I hope I don't disappoint you. Grace winked. By the time you leave here, you'll be cooking like an Eze woman. Soon, the little house was filled with laughter. Vanessa helped pound yam. Grace teased Daniel about marriage. Jacob laughed harder than he had in years. Neighbors passing by smiled. One elderly woman whispered, That young lady belongs in this family. Daniel watched Vanessa laughing happily with Grace. His heart became full. For the first time in many months, he truly felt at home. Later that afternoon, Daniel's phone rang. He looked at the screen. Mom Evelyn. He answered immediately. Mom? Her voice sounded weak. My son, please come and see me. I've missed you. Daniel became worried. Mom, are you all right? She forced a smile through the phone. I'll be fine. I just want to see you. I miss you. Daniel looked at Vanessa. We're coming right away. An hour later, their car entered the Okafor mansion. The gates opened immediately. The guards greeted Daniel with respect. He and Vanessa hurried upstairs. Inside the bedroom, Evelyn lay quietly on the bed. Chief Raymond sat beside her, holding her hand. Daniel rushed over. Mom, what happened? Then he looked at Raymond. Dad, is everything okay? Raymond sighed deeply. There is nothing seriously wrong with her. He looked at Daniel. She just hasn't stopped thinking about you. Raymond's own voice became heavy. We both miss you, my son. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. Without saying another word, he embraced both of them. The three of them cried together. For a moment, nothing else mattered. After a while, Daniel smiled. I want you to meet someone. He turned toward Vanessa. This is Vanessa, the woman I want to spend the rest of my life with. Vanessa greeted respectfully. Chief Raymond smiled warmly. Evelyn stretched out her hand. Vanessa quickly held it. Evelyn looked into her eyes. Thank you for standing beside my son when everyone else walked away. Vanessa smiled softly. I only loved him. Chief Raymond nodded with pride. You've chosen well, Daniel. Our blessing is with both of you. Daniel smiled. For the first time since leaving the mansion, his heart felt completely healed. That same night, the Okafor mansion came alive once again. Family members, business associates, close friends. They had all gathered. Tobi stood proudly in the center of the living room. Amara stood before him, smiling. Slowly, Tobi reached into his pocket. He brought out a small velvet box. The room fell silent. He went down on one knee. Amara, I stood beside you when my life changed. I don't want another day to pass without you. Will you marry me? Amara covered her mouth. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She smiled. Yes. The room erupted in applause. Just as Tobi slipped the ring onto her finger, a trembling voice echoed through the mansion. Stop! Everyone turned toward the entrance. The music suddenly died down. Every head turned. Standing at the entrance, holding an old metal box tightly against her chest, was Stella. She looked pale. Her breathing was heavy. Amara's eyes widened. Auntie! She hurried towards her. What are you doing here? You should be resting. She held Stella carefully. Turning to everyone, she said, I'm so sorry. This is my auntie. She has been very sick for months. I don't know why she left the house. Stella gently held Amara's hand. I had to come. There is something that cannot wait any longer. The room fell silent. Chief Raymond stepped forward. Madam, who are you? Stella swallowed. My name is Stella.
I was a nurse at St. Catherine's Maternity Hospital. The smiles disappeared from everyone's faces. Jacob suddenly became restless. His heart began to pound. Stella looked at him, then at Raymond, then at Evelyn. Finally, she looked at Daniel and Tobi. Tears rolled down her face. I know every one of you, and I know why you are all here. Just then, the security guard entered. Sir, Mr. Jacob Ize and his wife are here. Chief Raymond nodded. Please, let them in. Jacob and Grace entered quietly. They had come after hearing Daniel's phone conversation with Evelyn earlier that afternoon. Grace walked straight to Evelyn. My sister, we heard you weren't feeling well. We came to greet you. Evelyn smiled weakly. Thank you for coming. Daniel looked relieved. Now, everyone who mattered was together. Stella looked around the room. This is good, because no one should hear this story twice. She placed the old metal box on the center table. Her hands trembled as she slowly opened it. Inside was a faded hospital file, a leather-bound record book, and 2 tiny newborn wrist tags. Everyone stared at them. Chief Raymond frowned. What is all this? Stella took a deep breath. 30 years ago, the morning after your sons were born, I reported what happened that stormy night. Everyone looked confused. She continued. I told the head matron that one of the fathers entered the nursery and exchanged the babies. Jacob suddenly lowered his head. He already knew she was talking about him. Stella continued. The head matron immediately documented everything, every statement, every observation, everything I saw. She carefully lifted the old record book. This is the original hospital report. She looked at everyone. I wanted the police involved. I wanted the truth told, but the head matron stopped me. Grace whispered, Why? Stella closed her eyes. She said if the news became public, the hospital's reputation would be destroyed. People would stop bringing their wives there. The hospital could be shut down, and hundreds of innocent workers would lose their jobs. Tears rolled down Stella's cheeks. So she locked the report inside this box, and she told me, Stella, only God should judge this matter. Never speak of it again. I obeyed her. For 30 years, I carried this burden. She looked at the box. After the head matron died, I couldn't bring myself to open it. I was afraid. Then, months ago, I finally decided to tell the truth. She paused. But before I could come, I became seriously ill. I was admitted to hospital. I thought I was going to die. Amara held her aunt tightly. You should have told me. Stella smiled weakly. My first journey after leaving that hospital bed was to be here. She looked around the room, so every person whose lives were changed would hear the truth together. She slowly picked up the faded report. My confession is not finished. The biggest part is still inside this file. The room became so quiet that the ticking of the grandfather clock could be heard. Jacob couldn't stop shaking. Daniel held Vanessa's hand tightly. Tobi stared at the box. His heartbeat echoed in his ears. Nobody knew that everything they believed was about to change forever.
The living room remained completely silent. Stella stood beside the center table. Her trembling hands held the faded hospital file. Before she could continue, Chief Raymond slowly stood. He sighed deeply. Madam Stella, I appreciate you coming. He looked at Jacob. Everything has already been confessed. Jacob lowered his head in shame. Chief Raymond continued. This man has already admitted that he exchanged our sons. My family already knows the truth. Evelyn nodded sadly. So do we. Grace quietly wiped away her tears. The room became silent again. Stella slowly shook her head. No, you only know part of the story. Everyone looked at her. Jacob frowned. What do you mean? Stella looked directly into his eyes. You are telling the truth when you said you entered the nursery. You are telling the truth when you said you exchanged the babies. Jacob nodded slowly. I did. Stella's voice trembled. But you never took your own son home. The room froze. Jacob blinked. What? Chief Raymond frowned. I don't understand. Stella slowly opened the old hospital record. She removed a faded document. This was written by the head matron herself. It has never been altered. She handed it to Chief Raymond. He looked at the yellowed pages. The first page contained Stella's handwritten statement. The second, the head matron's official report. Chief Raymond began reading aloud. At approximately 2:17 a.m., Nurse Stella witnessed Mr. Jacob Ize exchange 2 newborn male infants during a power outage. Everyone looked at Jacob. He closed his eyes. His tears began falling again. Raymond continued. His voice suddenly became slower. Then, his hands started trembling. He looked up at Stella. No, this can't be.
Stella nodded gently. It is. Raymond continued reading. Immediately after witnessing the incident, Nurse Stella returned both infants to their original cribs before hospital staff resumed duty. Silence. Absolute silence. Nobody breathed. Nobody moved. Jacob stared blankly at Stella. His lips trembled. You did what? Stella burst into tears. I put the babies back. I returned every child to the family that gave birth to him. The file slipped from Chief Raymond's hands. It fell onto the floor. Nobody bent to pick it up. The words echoed through the mansion. I returned the babies. Jacob slowly stepped backwards. His knees suddenly gave way. He collapsed onto the floor. No, no. He held his head with both hands. I rejected my own son for 30 years? Grace screamed in tears. My God. Daniel stood frozen. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. He looked at Raymond, then Evelyn. Neither of them could speak. Finally, Evelyn slowly walked towards Daniel. Her hands were shaking. She touched his face. My son, you never left me. You are mine, all along. Daniel could no longer hold back his tears. He collapsed into her arms. Mother and son cried together. Raymond walked over. He embraced Daniel tightly. I'm sorry for letting you leave this house. Daniel whispered through tears. You didn't know. Raymond shook his head. But I should have done a DNA test or something. Protected you, whether you were my son or not. Daniel hugged him even tighter. Across the room, everyone suddenly remembered Tobi. He stood motionless with tears in his eyes. He looked at Stella, then at Jacob, then at Daniel. His voice barely came out. So, I was never the Okafor heir? No one answered. The silence itself was the answer.
The silence inside the mansion was unbearable. No one moved. No one spoke. Stella's words still echoed through the room. I returned both babies to their rightful cribs. Jacob remained on his knees. He beat his chest as tears streamed down his face. My son, my own son. I cursed him. I insulted him. I treated him like a stranger. Grace fell beside him, crying uncontrollably. Daniel quickly knelt before them. He held both of their hands. Mama, Dad, please, don't do this to yourselves. You are the man who taught me hard work. You are the woman who fed me with love. I cannot erase those memories. Jacob hugged Daniel tightly. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Across the room, Tobi stood like a statue. He looked at Daniel. Tears filled his eyes. I hated you. I envied you. I became proud. And all this time, you were never the one who took my place. Daniel slowly walked over. He placed a hand on Tobi's shoulder. You didn't steal my life. You were lied to just like I was. Tobi broke down. For the first time since entering the mansion, he cried without shame. Amara stood frozen. She stared at Daniel, then at Tobi. The weight of her choices crashed down on her. She slowly removed her engagement ring, walked toward Tobi, and placed it gently in his hand. I'm sorry. Tobi looked at her. You don't have to do this. Amara shook her head. I do. I said yes because I believed I had finally escaped poverty. I thought wealth meant security. She looked at Daniel. Tears poured down her face. I hurt the only man who ever loved me without conditions. She stepped toward him. Daniel, I'm sorry. I made the biggest mistake of my life. Daniel looked at her quietly. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, he smiled. Not with bitterness, not with anger, but with peace. I forgave you the day you walked away. Amara cried harder. Can you ever love me again? Daniel slowly turned toward Vanessa. He reached for her hand, then looked back at Amara. My heart found its way home. Amara closed her eyes. She understood. There was nothing more to say. She quietly walked away, not because anyone chased her, but because she knew that chapter of her life had ended. Chief Raymond slowly stood. He looked at Tobi, then at Daniel. My sons, listen to me. I refuse to lose either of you. He walked to Tobi first. I did not give you life, but I helped raise the man you became. Just learn to be nice to people. Then he turned to Daniel. You are my son with a golden heart. You always were. He embraced them both. Evelyn joined the embrace. Soon, Jacob and Grace stepped forward too. For the first time in 30 years, the two families stood together, not divided by blood, united by forgiveness. 6 months later, wedding bells filled the church. Daniel stood at the altar, waiting. The doors opened. Vanessa walked in wearing a beautiful white gown. She smiled through tears. Daniel couldn't stop smiling. Among the guests, Chief Raymond and Evelyn sat beside Jacob and Grace, not as rivals, but as one family. Tobi sat quietly in the front row. No expensive designer suits, no bodyguards, just a simple native outfit. His eyes met Grace's. She smiled proudly. He smiled back. This time, there was no pride, only gratitude. The pastor looked at Daniel. "Do you take Vanessa to be your lawful wife?" Daniel smiled. "With all my heart." The church erupted in applause. Outside, as the newlyweds walked out hand in hand, the camera slowly rose into the sky. Sometimes the truth doesn't come to destroy us. Sometimes it comes to put everything back where it belongs. For years, two families lived with a lie they never knew existed. But when the truth finally came to light, everyone had to face the consequences of the past. Some relationships ended, some wounds took time to heal, and some people finally found the happiness they had been searching for. Daniel had lost the woman he once thought he would spend his life with, but in the end, he found someone who chose to stand beside him. And sometimes, getting the truth is not the end of the story, it is the beginning of a new one. And that was the story of The Wrong Son.